So good evening. We are here again in a new place, and we are happy that it is warm and our needs of our body are satisfied. There's some noises, maybe adjustments for the microphone. We have come so far in our study about humanity that we are at the bottom level of where humans are taking their decisions. And we are on the bottom level of what we call function. In the whole earth, there is a law of life. And this law of life is, in a simple way, take to give. And this law precisely also says where to take and where to give. And it is the same in the physical as is in the spiritual. But our spirit thinketh is its opposite. He thinks he gives first before he takes. And this is something that brings all our troubles in our world. If it is disease, if it is conflicts, if it is whatever you imagine evil, comes from the opposite to the direction of life. Humanity does not live to give something. Humanity lives to take something. While everything else in the world, in nature, they take to give. Everyone does a service for the other. Just the human spirit thinks it's opposite. But is he thinking right, or is he deceived? And on the children, I could see that the idea that we give first before we take is a deception. So let us write it down. Here, this is the subconscious, the heart. And here we have the bottom line where we have these two actions. The one is to take, and the other one is to give. And the law says you take to give. That is life. And this is the spirit, and his actions are so important because when he takes, he first fills himself, and when he gives, he feeds the body. So let us write that there. The taking leads to fill the spirit, and the giving fills the body. So those are the two processes. When the spirit takes some information, he fills himself, but he cannot keep that, so he has to give it, and that goes into his body. So we can check him if he does it right according to the function of his body. This is how I discovered on the body level that the spirit takes from the wrong place. That the Spirit takes something that He gives as an output, what goes into the body and brings the body into dysfunction. So, the Spirit Himself, even though He thinks He gives first, so He gives to take, which is death, He still does not do it like the way He thinketh He does it. Now, this might be a little bit complex. He thinks He works like this while He works like that. Is that confusion? It's even confusing to say it. Yes? But let us see that the one is the path to life and the one is the path to death. You see, life was made that it should be continuous. And you can only continue your life when you have a place to take and a continual place to give. So you take continuously, you give continuously, you live continuously. But now, if you turn that around, you give to take, where do you get? How far do you get? Is that a continual flow when you give to take, or is it just a one move where you stop? It's you give, and when you reach the taking, what are you doing? You stop. And when you stop, you die. Because there is no moving, no life in stopping. So humanity thinks that when they get to the point to take, it's good. They stop. When you get to the gas station, and the gas station is your goal, then you will make a house at the gas station. You don't move again from there because that's where you want to be, at the place to take. Yes, we have to take, but the purpose of life is never in nature to take. Never ever you will see in this earth and in the universe that the purpose of everything that God created is to take. Everything that God created is just to give. Because, yes, they must take because they don't have it, but that's not the purpose of life. That's the need of life. But that is the goal of life. To give is the end of it and not to take. So you see, the path to death is a terrible path. It's a total confusion in the human mind. But even though the human thinks he gives first, it's a deception. He can never give what he did not take. But he does not see the taking before he gives. He just sees the reaction after he gave something, but he does not see that before he gave, he had to take. And I could observe this in children, because it goes subconsciously. And children get sick basically because they take from a place where they cannot be satisfied, and they give something, and that what they give is not satisfying their body, and so they have their dysfunctions. I have many stories where I can prove that the child is just dependent to take before it gives. But is it conscious to the child? No. Is it conscious to the mother? No. Mothers do not know the importance of their inner life. They just don't know it. That the child is picking up from them all what they need. I call the spirit of man in a child, it's like a 10,000 powerful cleaner. How you call this? Carpet? Not the carpet cleaner, but when you take the air in. Vacuum cleaner. So the human spirit is just like a vacuum. What is that? Giving or taking? That's taking. They picking up everything. You see them gaming there, but if I would say something that they immediately would sense it. Because it looks like they are absent. Oh, they can tell you at home what was spoken about. Because it's in their nature to continuously. You cannot say a word. You will hear it a few times later that you said. And you were thinking, oh, they won't pick this up. They pick everything up. Why? Because they are continuously, the spirit is hungry. And he takes continuously. And of course, he takes everything that comes along. He cannot discern what does him good and what does him no good. So, on the physical part of a child, I can see this. I just recently had a mother. She came also with the grandma. And the child was about 2 years. And they had recurrent infections. The ear were full with mucus behind the drum. And and I asked a little bit about the story. And when the child started to become sick, and it started to become sick when mother started to go to work and put the child in the daycare. Yes, only for 2 days or to half a day. It's still enough. The child will be sick. Why? Because it is like putting the fish on dry ground. When you put a child in a daycare center, it's like taking a fish out of water and putting it on dry ground. Because what can the child do not at the child care center? It has not the right place where it takes from. You cannot take from everyone. But you see why the world puts the children today in the daycare center? You know why? Because they think the child needs to be loved. And cannot a daycare person love the child like a mother? Oh, they can be even more peaceful like a mother sometimes. Can they? They're professionals. They might better love the children than the mother does at home, who is maybe overworked. But the child does not live from what the person gives. The child lives from what it takes. And there is in nature clear where you have to take. Can you put a tree or a certain seed in any ground? Or must it have certain conditions? Yes? Can you take we just talked this afternoon, I'm a person that likes good fruits, and I have a favorite fruit when I go to Asia, that's mangosteen. Just the thought on it just makes you hungry. And those are really good fruits. When I first did my mission trip, and I discovered this fruit in 2007 in Cambodia. I bought a big box from the wholesale market. It was just there around the corner of the hotel, and I had a box in my room. Of course, I didn't know that you have to see if they're soft or not. I just bought the box, and then I found many were rotten already, but they were cheap. So I bought the whole box, and every day I ate mangosteen, because I like them. When I like something, I eat them. Now, can you bring a mangosteen to America and put him here to grow? No. You see, can you bring a macadamia tree to every place that he should grow? It takes 11 months for the macadamia not to ripen. I once was in a factory in Australia that's what I remember. I think it's 11 months, and it needs certain conditions. So the conditions where to take are prefixed from the beginning. There is no possible change to put things or to be dependent on other things than they who are, who were made for that. So, is it for the Spirit the same? Or is the Spirit not prefixed from where to take? Can he choose from where to take and have no consequences for that? Or is there no choice from where you have to feed yourself? I mean, yes, you have a choice not to feed yourself, and you have a choice to feed from a wrong source, but will that be accepted by your body? Will that keep you healthy, or will it eventually destroy you? Even though it might look like it feeds you. So I came to understand that the place where you have to take, and of course the what you have to take, are predetermined. When God created the human being and He created the human spirit, He made it very plain where He has to take and where He has to give. And if He would just fulfill that, the spirit would live very happily, and the body would be nourished with the best powers. So, humans don't know where they take from. They think they don't take at all. They think they're free. I mean, not free, they think they are independent. So, but the place where you take is dependency. So here you are dependent from. And this dependency is absolute. It's nothing that you can say, oh, I'm not dependent. I'm independent. No, that we have needs. And these needs need to be satisfied from a certain place is a determined thing. And we find that God tried to make it plain to the human being where he should take and where he should give. Now, for me, it was interesting to see that even though the spirit, the human thinks that they live like that, they work like that, it's not so. But if you think you work like that, which way do you follow? Of course, the deceptive way, this error way. And you know the error is I am God, and the Bible calls that sin or sinful nature. So, how can you explain a person to make him clear that he is in an error when he thinks he's right? I tell you a story that helped me to see things better. I had a 72 years old gentleman, and he developed over 6 years a neuralgia of the trigeminus nerve on his left side. And these are terrible pains. Have you ever had tooth pain? Yes? So imagine you have it on the whole face. All three nerves or ramification of this trigeminus nerves, they just shock you with terrible pain in your left side of your face. And that for 6 years. And he was tormented, and finally he went to do surgery. And they cut off his head, but they didn't help him at all. And so he found at the beginning of this year a doctor who gave him 3 very strong medications that just numbed his nerves. And so he was very happy. He got rid somehow of this terrible pain. But after 2 months, he came with dizziness to my practice. Now, what is better? Pain or dizziness? So, you might say dizziness, but I tell you, both are not good. I neither like dizziness nor pain. But you see, it hits you. And so he comes and I say, no problem, we will find it out. Because if we do not find out why your nerve is sick, we don't know why you get dizzy, because that's just another symptom of what you now experience. And I took him, and he came for consult, and I explained him the whole law of life. And he had the following story. For years, after his mother died about 10 or 11 years ago, when he came, from this year on back. His father died even before. He was a Catholic, and he went every Sunday to church. And after church, he went to the cemetery. And there at the cemetery, he talked and explained to his parents what he has gone through his week, and told them, so, like people go to the graves and they talk to their dead people there. And he did this ritual every Sunday after the death of his parents. Now, in our hearts, there are only 2 reasons why we go to a cemetery. We either go to give or we go to take. Why did he go to the cemetery? What did he search at the cemetery? Did he search to give or to search to take? What did he want to give? So why did he go to the cemetery? To give his parents something or to take something from his parents? It's very obvious. He answered me immediately, I go to take. Would he ever think that is wrong? Would it ever occur to him that what he's doing causes him his disease? Would he think that? Never. Why not? Because he does not know the law. And I explained him the law that God gave to discover the deception. In the Bible it says, why were the 10 Commandments given? To make plain to us that where sin is, where the problem is. So the law was given for our relationships. And there are two causes for a love relationship. One, you love a person to take. The other one is you love a person with the reason with the purpose to give. You love one to give and one to take. So, can you do that with the same person? Can you have one person to fulfill the law of life? Or do you need two? Who should be that person? So, we would think that one person would be enough to fulfill the law of life. But nature shows us, and our life shows us, that to take from a place and to give in another place, you need two relationships, not only one. And the important thing is that for us to realize you cannot give anything at the place where you take, and you cannot take anything at the place where you give. Those are opposite. They're not possible. So at the place you go to love, you can just take, and at the place you love to give, you can just give. There is no possibility to switch or to think at the place where you give, you also take, and at the place where you take, you also give. It's hard for us to understand, but I make it slowly so that we might grasp it. So I explained to my patients the 10 Commandments written on the 2 tables of stone by the finger of God. And he knew them because every Christian I think knows the 10 Commandments. So, why did God write them on 2 tables? I discovered this because I discovered this in this last year, seeing that the 2 tables had 2 different goals. The one table has the goal to teach us where to take, where we are dependent on, and the second table is to teach us where to give, we are independent. From. So the one teaches a situation where we have to be dependent on, and the other place we have to do it, but we're not dependent on where to give. I hope you understand the point. So here is an exclusive law, and here is an inclusive law. So here are 6 commandments, and here are 4 commandments. And when you look to the commandments, you will see an amazing thing. How many gods are there out? One God. How many should we worship? How many names should we honor? 1. How many days of worship are there in a week? 1. So this is all one source to take. And who is the source? Is that source clearly determined? Yes, it is God. Can you find love anywhere else? Can you? No. The only place to find love, to take from, is from God. So when we worship God, do we give Him something or do we take something from Him? I wait sometimes too. So when we come to church and say we worship God, do we give Him something or do we take something? So most people, I think, are convinced that they give something. But when you go and come to worship, when you pray, when you read, you are going to take something. You see, when you pray, you take or you give? I could give you presentations now about the Lord's Prayer. And you will be amazed that the Lord's Prayer teaches us where to take and how to give. So why do you go to God? To take, that you might have something to give. But the most people pray and they go to God and say, Lord, please help him, do this, do that. And what does God say? I'm sorry, I'm not for this here. You pray to ask me what you should do, not to tell me what I should do. But look to your prayers. You will find that you tell God what He has to do. You don't go to God and say, Lord, teach me what I have to do for others. We are totally the opposite in our prayers. Because we know better what God has to do, does we? Do we? Yes. So, in the Lord's Prayer, it's very obvious. When it says, what was it? It says, our Father which art in heaven, holy be thy name. What does that mean? Who should make the name of God holy? By what? Is that, Lord, help me to honor and holify your name? Or is it just a saying? When you pray, thy will be done, why do you pray it? To know God's will to do it? Or just because you think the things are there? We have not understood that the prayer is for the purpose to take that we might give. And Jesus told this prayer in connection with the gentleman that got the visitors that came to his place and he had no food to give to them. So he said, I need some food, I need some bread. Give me, I have visitors. So we go to God that we know what to give. But if we don't go to Him to know what to give, we will not be able to give the right thing. So we are not conscious about that. So God is there that we should take from Him. That's why in the Bible He presents Himself as bread. He presents Himself as water of life. Tell me, how much can you give bread when you eat it? Do you give anything to the bread when you eat it? No. Do you give anything to the water when you drink it? No. No. So, the place where to take is determined. So why do you go to the cemetery? So where are your parents then? Where do they sit? On which throne? Which place did they have? Which place? They have the place of God. Here are our parents. Here are our spouses. Here are our children. Here are our friends. We love them all with the same love that we should love God only. We love them to take from them. Is it conscious to us? Was it conscious to my gentleman? My patient? No. I said, your parents are on this side, not on this side. Because where it is said, honor thy father and thy mother. On this side is the fifth commandment. So what is honoring? Taking or giving? Yes, it is here. Here you give. Here you give honor. That's not taking. And then we have the other 5 laws. They say, do not kill, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not lie, and do not covet. And all these 5 commandments say, do not take from this place. You would never commit adultery if you would not take from that place. You would never steal or kill or covet if that would be the place of not taking. That's just a place of giving. So the law of the 10 Commandments, they show exactly the deception. Can they rescue you? Yes? Can they save you, the law? Can the law save you? No. But if you don't see the problem, you don't need a Savior. Now I brought this, my patient, to the point that he said, see, my parents are here. And I said, now you see that something is wrong there? And he said, I see. So are you willing to do something? What was his answer? He said, that will be very hard. And it's clear. But for that, I need a Savior. For that, I need a power to be able to see first the thing, and then to want to put the parents where they belong, and put God where they belong. But I tell you, without the law, I would have not seen it. that we take before we give, that everything we do in life is taking. You see, no one on this earth has a relationship just to give. While all relationships were made that we should have among us just to give. That's why God says here, love your neighbor as thyself. That means love your neighbor like who is on the same level with you. And it doesn't matter if the neighbor kills your child, if the neighbor does anything wrong, you still can love him because it's not a place where you take. You're not dependent on whom you give the love that you took from Christ or from God. You're not dependent. Like I said last night, the tree is not dependent on who eats his fruit. But he's dependent on the earth where he takes to produce that fruit. The same way our spirit. He is dependent to take from a place and to give. And this place he can give to everyone. And it doesn't matter how the other is, because you just are here to give. That's why the neighbor in the Bible has no qualities. He can be ugly, he can be stinky, he can be whatever. And I tell you a story that just happened with me a few weeks ago in my practice. And I never can remember in 11 and a half years to be so challenged. I was looking after one patient after the other, and when I opened the door from my office to take people from the waiting room, I sensed a not good smell. But I said, who is smelling in this place so ugly? And so finally the patient came who was the smelling one. And I'm very sensitive with my nose. The smelling is not something that I like. So I put him on a chair, and you know, when you are an ENT, you cannot speak from here to that. You have to look all those nose and yes, and he had an infected ear. And I could not wash that with water because he had a hole in the drum. And so I had somehow to get that bowl out of, it was the cerumen and pus, and it was put like a stone there, and I had to get that somehow out. And I imagine you have to be very close to him with the microscope in the ear, and you want to get rid so fast as possible. The things should be done. And then this patient is 55 years old. The moment you go into his ear and you want to do something, he bounces back. He gets his head away. And then, you know, when you're under microscope, you have to fix it again. And so I tried. And I think in about 10 minutes, I lost my patience. And of course, I felt it inside. And I did not express the things so hard outside, but I lost my patience. And I said to the gentleman, I said, look, we have to fix this. You are going to sit still. But it hurts. I said, doesn't matter. You're 55 years old. You stay to it. You grind your teeth and we have to do it. And so I fixed his head somehow on the chair. I said, put your head so on the chair and stay still so that I can take that thing out. And finally, I took it out. And when he was ready, and he almost was at the door, I told him, I said, because it was the first time he came to me, I said, this ear is chronically, and you have to come now and then, so don't wait so long. Come earlier. And I wanted to say him, but don't go into your stall before you come. Because I thought it was thinking of stall. It's like a horse, or I don't know what he had for issue. My helper said, no, that's not horse, that was urine. Or whatever it was. It was smelling terribly. Now, he was gone. And I have to check myself what I have done. And when I have a spare minute, I talk to the Lord and said, now what happened with me? Why did I lose my temper? Can you give me an answer? Only from this thing. What did I do wrong? Who became the source of my taking? The patient. So he was impatient, was he? He did not stay still. How did I become? How did I become? The same. See, forget the give to take. This is just an illusion. This is just a deception. You always take to give, even though you don't know it. You always take to give. But you take from the wrong place. So this gentleman became the taking place of my action. And I became like him. He couldn't keep still, could I? It dawned to me, and I was so thankful. Do you think this patient came from God into my office, in my practice? Absolutely. God sent him, said, my dear child needs to learn a lesson. And I learned it. And I know the next one will come, who will smell terribly. He might have had any other things. What will I do? So, are we aware where we take from? Every person you get upset on is on your eating table, on your eating plate. Is that something you understood? Yes? It's bread for you. His water for you. You orient yourself after him. You don't orient yourself after God. Imagine after 5 minutes in that situation, my spirit would say, Lord, I have something to do here. I don't get it. Would the Lord have answered? Yes. He would have remembered me that it is the right of that patient to smell good or smell bad. Can a patient come to you smelling bad? Can he? And you say, oh, this is coming, this is a good thing. Or should he wash himself before he comes? How should it be? Do you have any expectation as a doctor? Should you? No. God will have reminded me, he is allowed to smell. I give you power enough. Don't worry. You'll live through it. Wouldn't that be a good advice from God? He would have encouraged me. And then, can you understand him? that it hurts? Oh yes, I understand. So how do we do it now? So the Lord would just have remembered me His principle. And we'll talk about the principle of love on the last evening, because I leave the best to the last. He would have remembered me that, and I would have just reacted completely different to the situation. And my heart would have not been overcome. I would have not been getting angry, no matter how long He would have sat into my room, because when He left, I opened all the windows so that I could have got some other air from other things. So, are you aware where you take from? Since that event, I'm more aware where I take from than ever before. But it's so subtle. You have no idea how difficult it is, and this is without a Savior, to see where you take from. Because this is blindness. You don't see this. You don't see that before you do something, all your actions you do according to a point where you orient yourself. And I came to understand there are only these two actions. You take from God and you give to humans. How many of you do you think you keep the law? You see, we can keep the law according to the letter. Can we? Like the Jewish people in Jesus' time. Tell me, which law did the rich young ruler break? All of it. You see, when he came to Jesus, he says, Lord, what should I have to inherit eternal life? What was the answer? Keep the law. And he says, which one? And on which one does Jesus point him? On this or on that? On this. And what is his answer? I kept it from my youth. Now, was the rich young ruler blind? Was he convinced that he kept the law? Yes. Now, if Jesus would have told him, oh, poor guy, you deceive yourself, what would have said the rich young ruler? Of course not. And he would have brought all his proofs that he kept it from his childhood. So Jesus knew how to deal with him and said, there's one thing that lacketh. Sell everything you have and give it to the poor. So he said, give. Did he? And then you will have a treasure in heaven, and then come and follow me. Why could the rich young ruler not sell everything what he had? What was it? What was going on in his heart? Why could he not say, oh Lord, how could it come that I should know this before? Why could he not sell everything? Because he thought that the goods that he has were from whom? From himself. And he thought that God requires for him too big a sacrifice. Was he deceived by the sinful nature? Totally. Which law in the end did he break? Where did he take from? He thought that he took from him self. He thought that he should sell his own goods. Will God ever ask you to sell your own goods? No. You don't have anyone. But the rich young ruler was so into his sin, but God, he could have been enlightened by the presence of Christ. Was he? Yes, he could have. But he decided to stay in the darkness. But his problem was he did not keep the law at all from his youth, because he thought that he uses his own things. He didn't see that all the goods he had came from God. He thought that this is my work, this is my power, this is what I invested. How can I give that to the poor? That's unfair. Well, if it's your goods, it's unfair. But if it's God's good, it will benefit you if you give it. So, the keeping of the Ten Commandments is something that is so unconscious to the Christian people that when I discovered it in my practice, I came to understand that even though who pushes the law in front, they have not understood what the law means and how it functions. So you can keep here the letter. You can keep here the letter, like the rich young ruler, while you in your heart are the total opposite of the law. Because this is the spirit of the law, and this is the letter of the law. And if you don't understand the spirit of the law, you cannot even understand the letter of the law. You just have dry formalities here. Tell me, did Adam and Eve break the Ten Commandments? Is there any commandment here not to eat? Or what was the commandment that Adam and Eve broke? They were said, do not eat from the tree. And the serpent comes and says, eat from the tree. From where did Adam or Eve take? From God or from the serpent? So you see, the Ten Commandments, or the law of life, better to say not the Ten Commandments, because the law of life was given to Adam and Eve. If they would have never taken from someone else, they would have never eaten from that tree, and they would have never sinned, and we would not be in this miserable state that we are. So the law of life is always there. It always will be, all eternity. How it is called in the conscience, this is something that is set for the sinner to understand. This is a formulation so that we understand the law. But the law is, you have to take from God and you have to give to those around you. And that's an eternal law. No one will ever change it. We have to understand it. And I could understand it on disease. I tell you another story, because stories exemplify so easy where you take and where you give. I have a young man, he has depression. And he has this depression for a long time. And he told me that he has a problem. Whenever he makes an appointment with someone to meet, and the person doesn't come, he gets very upset. And after a half an hour, the person doesn't show up, he says, I called him, and I don't find him on the phone. And then I get even more upset. And when I get no peace, until I get that person to tell him the wrong he did to me. It so disturbs me. It brings me out of my control. And I said, you're an easy case. It's very simple. Let's check your heart. Tell me, why do you go to meet a friend? There are 2 reasons only for everything you do. Only 2 reasons. You go to take, or you go to give. When he would have made the appointment to give something, tell me, how upset would he become? Not at all. But he made the appointment to take something. When the other didn't show up, who had the loss? He did. Who was in pity? He was. So who made him wrong? The other one. That's why he needs to strangle him. You have didn't fulfill your word. I mean, the other one did something wrong, yes. But who has the loss? If he would make the appointment just to give, and the other one would not show up, how would he feel? He would say, poor guy, he lost something. Because I am here for you, not you for me. Wouldn't it be nice? You come to an appointment and the other person doesn't come and you say, oh, he lost, but I gained. That would be nice, would it? Because we would understand. We would not fight each other. But you see, when you have an appointment, you need to check your motivation. You either go to take or you go to give. And when you go to give, how many chances do you have to be disappointed? No chance to be disappointed. Because that's not the place you sit on. That's not the place you eat. You eat here, you give here. And I finish with the story. I didn't tell this here in the audience. I just recently had a wedding ceremony. My friend got married, and he asked me to do the speech for the marriage. And of course, I did 2 things. I brought him 2 things with me. I brought a big tube of eye self, I call it. Nivea. You have Nivea here? Big tube, the biggest tube I got, so that everyone could see that's something you have to put on your skin. And I said, I bring you this at your wedding day because you need it. You see, in marriage relationship, it is the most probable that you confuse where to take and where you give. Yes, every discontent, every fight is because of giving or taking? Taking. So I said, you need some I self. The I self comes from Revelation 3. Yes, something very important. So, whenever you get into trouble, you need to put this I self on to see that you're wrong. You want at the wrong place the wrong thing. And I brought with me also a big bread, the biggest bread I could find in the shop. And I said, this bread represents the love of God and God. Here you have to eat. Don't eat from each other. Don't bite each other. Just bite the bread. The bread is for eating. But the spouse is for giving. You like it? I like it. It would spare them all discomfort. If they just would put that bread somewhere and say, this is it, let's go eat here. And then we will be satisfied and just giving each other. Now it looks sometimes like it's an impossibility, does it? Or just to me? I tell you, that is why we need a Savior. It's an impossibility only because we are so deceived in our hearts. We confuse why the humans are there and why God is there. And we think that it's right what we do. But through disease, I could see that the human heart, this is the spirit, does things wrong because he's not aware of it. Now we are born with this. That we are born with it, it's not a problem. God made provision to free us from it through the cross of Christ. The cross of Christ was given, his meaning is to take away the error. The law shows us the error, but the law cannot take away the error. The law cannot not make us to keep it. The law just shows us where our problem is. But we need a Savior to get rid of this. And that will be tomorrow night. We will speak about a very important topic in disease, that is forgiveness. How does the cross of Christ work? What is real forgiveness? So that you are not just doing something, saying, I have forgiven, I have solved, while your body is still sick. We have to understand that. Because if we do not understand the reason the law was given, and the way we function, and the deception we are in, and the need of a Savior, we do not understand our life. And we do not understand the fight. We will fight our wife, we will fight our husband, we will fight our neighbors, we'll all go around the people where we take from. And we are not conscious that we are on a wrong path. Even though might we confess for years and go to church and have not seen for what I need a Savior. For what I need the cross of Christ, so that I be free to take from the right place and give at the right place, because they are determined. Here it is determined. Here you have to give it everyone. Doesn't matter who you love. You can love everyone. Because here is just the output of that what you have as input. So, the thought that I would like you to understand when you go home. In life, our heart works so we have to gain. We have to go to the gain. And we have to avoid loss. With this law, with this eyesight, with the truth, we have full control over our life. We have a yes and a no for everything. But on give to take, when we give to receive, we have no control over our life at all. We are not getting sick when we have no troubles, But we always will get sick when others hurt us, when others do not come to the appointments, when others die away, when others, whatever they do, we will destroy ourselves because the control is taken away from us, because we have not seen where we have to take and where we have to give. The loss and gain is dependent on the bottom of it, is just where to take and where to give. And when you know where to take, you also will know what to take. And when you know where to give, you also will know what to give. So this is here where you get the gain. This is here where you have to get to take, but the gain is here. So try to see, where are your relationships? I mean, make it conscious to you. Are you having God on the first place of your life? Is He the most closest for you? For who was the most closest person in my patient's case who went to the cemetery? Who was most close to him? God or his parents? Obviously his parents. But has he never read in those 70 years that he's going to church, since his birth, that God should be who? Where? The closest. With whom do you talk about your problems? With God or with humans? Now there is a place to talk to professionals until you get it how to talk to God with it. But we should know that when we have problems, we go to take an information, a counsel from where? From God. And I do this since 12 and a half years, since my reconversion story, and I will tell that tomorrow night also. I make God my counselor. Who shall I ask? Who shall give me a guidance what I should do when a patient stinks? Or smells bad? Or does not behave? Who shall guide me? After whom should I orient myself? What's the first thought when you wake up in the morning? What's the first thought when you have any issues? Is it God, or your wife, or your husband, or your mom, or your dad? Who is the most sweetest in your thoughts? Who is it? Because that's the most closest to you. And why should it not be God? Your mom and dad can give you nothing. Hey, if you're not a child until 12 or 15, and you can go to your parents. But when you're old enough, you need to stand and be dependent on God and know what you want to do. So God needs to be, for every Christian, the first address where he goes for counsel. And if you are trained to go to him, you don't need to go to humans. You go to humans just to give. I once was at a booth and they wanted to offer me counsel and said to you, I said, I'm a counselor myself. I don't need counsel. I said, what? I thought everyone needs counsel. No, I don't need human counsel. It seems like a little bit too high, does it? But it is not so. We should be counselors, but we don't need human counsel, do we? I mean, I don't say this that you never need it in a professional way. That's why I say there is a place. But that place is just until you get that connection with God where you take your counsel from him. Because the new covenant says, everyone is taught by God, not by humans. We need to know that. We need to have that connection to God where He can help us to understand, this is it, and then you go for it. But humans cannot be it. Humans are here that we give counsel to them. Yes, imagine Jesus would have come on earth and He would have needed counsel. So the Christians, the people who walk with God, they need to be counselors. They need to be givers of that what they take from God. But it would be sad if they would need for themselves a human counselor. It would be improper. You need a counselor, but it must be a divine one, not a human one. That would make you dependent on human, but it would make you independent on humans, make you independent on the place to give. So, think about if the law is written in your heart, because here it must be written, and think where you take, and ask God to make you clear where you take from. Because I tell you, every difficulty that you have is just from taking, never from giving. And if you have a problem with a person, you know that's your eating plate. Give it away. Do it away. It's not the right place. Go to God, and He will help you to eat from the right place and give at the right place. So, I don't know, shall we have questions now? Oh, you might not.
Get through some.
Yeah, we'll have some for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I might take this one first. How does the law of life take to and give work with John 3:16 and or the sanctuary service that explained the plan of salvation? Well, perfectly. So let's see, what is John 3:16? God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that everyone should believe in Him would have everlasting life. So, what did God do with His Son? For what purpose? For us to take from Him. Because in whom you trust, that's where you take. If Adam and Eve would have trusted to God, they would have taken from God. So He gave us His Son that we should not trust anymore in our father and mother and in ourselves, but to trust in God. He wants us to get us back our confidence in Him, because that was what Adam lost in Eden. He lost the confidence. And now God wants us to show that we need Him. We can have confidence in Him. And He gave His Son. That's love, is it? That's what you express. But for what purpose? That we might not take any more from anything else, but just from Him, to believe in Him. So we believe in Him, we will have everlasting life. Isn't it simple? Thank you for that question. And the same thing is in the sanctuary message. You know, the lamb represents that something needs to die. And who is the one who needs to die? Me needs to die. So that's why the sanctuary message shows that you need to go, you have to kill that animal, because something in you needs to be killed. They're very plain, The sanctuary message shows that you have something in you that needs to die. And since you cannot do it for yourself, who has done it? Christ became your substitute. Yes? So that you might have a chance to fulfill the law of life, to trust in God. Because that will never be taken away from you. We always need to take and to give. So I could do a whole sermon out of your question. How do you diagnose or associate prostate cancer or enlargement using the law of life? Knowing the enlargement comes with or loss of heavy creams with eye. What is that?
Comes with age.
Comes with age. Okay. The enlargement comes with age or loss of hearing that comes with age. Now I got it. Yes. Now, we have many things that we think that come with the age. But I have some age people, and I just recently had, I think she was 80 years old, and she had the perfect hearing. How can you explain that? She was 80, and she had a hearing like a baby. Is the hearing loss an age issue or a burden issue? What is it? Is prostate enlargement an age issue or a problem issue? And I can tell you from the stories that I have in my practice that we can relate. From the story, we can see the prostate problem and the hearing problem or any other problem. Even vision is something that is related to that. Now, there are, I so say, things that don't bother us too much because we have an eye, we can put glasses or we can put anything, and it might be inherited. I don't know all things. But things like a prostate enlargement or prostate cancer, I could see that it is from taking from the wrong place. It is mourning for your parents, usually. And that's why you get it in age. But you can get it even earlier when things in your life happen earlier. So it's loss that brings the... And then there are certain curves in the hearing loss that you could not relate to, because we have some curves that we say that it's age curves, yes? But when you have certain curves in that hearing diagram, you know exactly that's from your difficult childhood, that's from your difficult parents' relationships, and you can see it and relate it to it. So I take through 2 more questions and then we'll do the others tomorrow.
One more.
Pardon?
One more.
Pardon?
Yes, I have a question here.
Yes, but we have them tomorrow, yes?
Tomorrow?
Yes, so... When a child is sick, what wrong did the child take something wrong, or did the mother give something wrong? That's also a very good question. The answer is simple. The law says what is right. Did the mother give something wrong, or the child took something wrong? Pardon? Well, by the law, you know that what the mothers give is not that what affects the child. It's just what the child takes. Yes, what the mother gives, the child also takes, yes, and orients after. So it's always the child that makes itself sick. Because the law is just one way possible. You take to give. But of course the child has no choice. It must take from where it was bound on, and that is mother. It was not bound to father to take in the first row. Then the father would have delivered the child. But no, the child was in the mother's womb. There the spirit of the child connected with the spirit of mother, and they are in a continual connection where the child takes continually. That's why when a child has a problem, I speak to the mom. Because if the mother's heart would be relieved from the burden, then the child takes just the good. And then it's all fixed. I cannot fix the child in the way that I say, oh, please don't take from mother because she's sad. No. I say, the child needs to take from mother. The law prescribes that. There's no other source in childhood that needs to develop the character. That was given to mom. And it's a double, it's not what mom does in the first row, but it's what mom thinks in the first row. How happy she is, how content she is, what the child takes over. So, a mother can give something wrong, but that doesn't make the child sick. It's only that what the child takes up that makes the child sick. This is very important because, you see, some people come and say, my mother never loved me. Say, you don't need it. You have ever lived from your mother, whatever she did. Because by law, you took from her. What she did didn't matter. But we think in our deception, what mother does matter. No. What you do matters. But as a child, of course, you have no choice. You have to take it from there. But would it not be a great relief to not blame your parents for your miserable situation today, but just blaming you? Yes, you had no choice, but now you have a choice. You can stop taking from mother if she's not the best source and start eating from God. But you would not blame then the mother. The mother didn't give me that, or she gave me that, or she beated me up, or whatever she did. Because it was not that what made you who you are. It was your taking who made you what you are. Yes, mother has its responsibility to be the right source, but don't blame anyone for what you do. So in the adulthood, when we come to the place and say, this is the law, so it was not mother who hurt me. No, I hurt myself, yes. So stop hurting you. And then you don't need to blame poor mother for whatever her heart had. So the law would just open our eyes and see that we would solve our childhood issues in a moment, seeing that it was no one else than me, and now I have a choice. Yes, then I had no choice. I was blind, but now I can see. We won't be, how can I say this, judged because we have not, because we were born with this sinful nature. We won't be judged only because we remain in it. We go for it and eat further from mom, and we either blame others for what was done. So let us make it clear. It's everyone's own taking that makes him sick. Yes, I was much sick. I will tell that also tomorrow from where I took. But I will never blame my parents, because it was not their fault. They not only didn't know it better, but I did it to me. And now I have a choice to not do it anymore to me. And then I'm eating from God, and so my diseases that I took over from my parents can stop. And when I got reconverted 12 years ago and a half, my migraine stopped, and my neck issues stopped that I had for years, since I was 15, because I started to not take any more from there. So it is our responsibility. Can a seedless fruit make humans sick because it take but cannot give? Now this is a philosophical question. I don't know what to answer here. Can a seedless fruit make humans sick because it take but cannot give? So, or it took but cannot give. What's the question?
Yeah, that is the question, because 2 days ago in your presentation, you talk about a seed that it has a tree in the seed, and all it do is give. It's violating the law of life, right?
Pardon?
Is it violating the law of life and therefore making...
If you have no seed, if the fruit has no seed, is there any seedless fruit? Grapes? Ah, when you mean when you take out the seeds from the grape?
No, they come like that.
Yeah, genetically modification. Yes. Well, you can never modify the law and the function. You can just modify what comes out. And there is no danger in a seedless fruit, because it's still a fruit. That plant gave something. That's the grape. The grape is the result of working of that vine. Yes? That vine was changed so that you should not have to spew out the seeds, or they shouldn't get between your teeth. But that vine still takes to give. It never stops.
But in your explanation, you said that the cycle must continue.
Yes, the cycle continues with the one. No, the cycle continues. No. So this is a a twisted understanding, I would say, and this is how we get easily fooled. You eat the fruit. The cycle is not in the seed. The cycle is that you take the fruit and eat it, and then all the cycle is fulfilled. The only thing is that vine cannot multiplicate itself, say, by the seeds, but I know that vines are multiplicated by taking a rod and putting it in the ground, and then that rod springs up. But of course, I think even you take a seed and put it, and then the rod will come out eventually. So it just interrupted the multiplication, but the law is not interrupted, the function is not interrupted. You still have the grapes, and you eat them, and someone else takes care in the stomach for it, and the same circle is not interrupted. Just the multiplication is interrupted. And then, of course, someday the vine would die out, to say so, if we do not multiplicate it in another way. But the seedless fruit is not, it's just an effect is changed. But the vine itself still works, takes to give. And you take it and eat it, and it still works the same way. So this is a good question in the end, so that we can understand that the law is never changing. Everything that we can do is to change effects. We can take seeds out, we can take certain genes we change we can just change an effect, but we can never change the law of life. The law of life and the function of every plant, of everything, is unchangeable. Yes?
He will think to change times and laws. Satan, through genetically modified things, thinks he can maybe change it. He's not going to change it.
So?
Questions that you can read. So we'll stick with questions that you can read.
Yes, but I thought that it might be late. Or shall I? I will prepare, and so I come tomorrow night and the day after tomorrow. Okay? Or is anyone think that we need to answer his questions tonight? Is it okay? Okay. Keep things in. Okay.